Hey, this is episode number 30 of I Love This Album. And since it's 30, it must be a special occasion because it's a number that ends with a zero, just like 20 and 10 were special occasions. And this was definitely a special occasion because I'm going to talk about Iron Maiden's brand new album called Senjutsu. No, I'm not. I wish I were. The only reason I say that is because today it was announced that Iron Maiden has their new album, their 17th album coming out. And on September 3rd called Senjutsu, and I'm in full Iron Maiden mode, and I would love to hear about Senjutsu. I'm sure I would love to talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it today. So psych, as we used to say back, I think in the 80s or maybe the 90s, people used to trick people in and say psych. But it is episode 30. That was not a psych. That is true, and my cat is knocking over her tower over here. She's been crazy. I think she's also very excited about Iron Maiden. But I am going to talk about, it is episode 30, as I mentioned. I think that was that was true, episode number 30. And I'm going to talk about M.O.D, that's Method of Destruction. And this album is called U.S.A for M.O.D. Sometimes it's hard to remember. You have all these initials. You have M.O.D, U.S.A, FBI, CIA, DEA, SOS, many initials. Hard to keep track sometimes, so you make mistakes. So this is Method of Destruction was the full name, similar with you had COC or Corrosive Conformity. Some people, if they have a lot of time in their life, they would say the full name, Method of Destruction. I don't have time for that, so from here on out, I'm going to just call them MOD, just to save a little bit of time. And this was, in my opinion, this was their debut album, MOD's debut album. Although to me, and I think probably to a lot of people, I saw this clearly as a follow-up to S.O.D, which was Stormtroopers of Death. It was a follow-up to their album called Speak English or Die. This album came out in 1987, and S.O.D, Speak English or Die, came out in 1985. I talked about that album many episodes ago, and maybe episode 3 or 4 or 5, maybe something like that, because I do also love that album. To me, this is like a companion to that album, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit. First, as normal, I will talk about my history with M.O.D. Not that much. I don't. They're not as old as some of these other bands I've talked about. As I mentioned, this album came out in '87. That was a great year. I've mentioned '87 before. The first Death Angel album, Sacrifice for Determination, Anthrax, Among the Living, Appetite for Destruction. That was the very first one I talked about in this series. The Cult Electric. I talked about that. There's going to be another one I'm going to be talking about in the next episode or next 2-3 episodes. I don't know, whenever I feel like it. Another masterpiece from 1987. Aren't you all just waiting now to see what that album is? That's called a tease in this industry. The show business industry, the entertainment industry. So this album came out in '87. I never saw them live. I don't think they really toured much back then. Now I did almost see them. They played in Toronto at Rock and Roll Heaven, a great place, one of my favorite concert venues ever, called Rock and Roll Heaven. They played there in, I think it was I remember it was freezing cold. It was either January or February '88. And they played there, M.O.D. Played there at Rock and Roll Heaven, opening for Exodus, who was touring on another great album from '87, which was Pleasures of the Flesh. The cannibalistic pleasures of the flesh. And so Exodus and M.O.D. came to Rock and Roll Heaven in Toronto in the winter, early '87. I was too young. I was only 17. And no, sorry, '88. I was 18. Both those albums came out in '87. The tour was in '88. And I was only 18. You still need to be 19 to go to bars or clubs in Toronto and in Ontario. But I tried to sneak into that, as I did with Anthrax when they played at the El Macombo in 1987 in Toronto, August 30th, '87. You try, you hope for a miracle, and you try to get in, and I didn't, to either Anthrax or M.O.D. and Exodus. But I did hang outside Rock and Roll Heaven, and I brought some money with me, and since I couldn't get in, I gave somebody money to go inside and buy me a shirt. So I did get an S.O.D. shirt and also an Exodus shirt. I must have been rich working at my part-time job I think I was working at KFC at the time. I was in high school. And And I did meet Tim McMurtry, who was the guitarist for M.O.D. I met him and I got a picture of him. Even back then, I was taking pictures of people or with people. I'll have to try to find that picture sometime. I think it's way back in Canada, at my mother's house in the basement. But I will find it one day. So that's my history with M.O.D. Not too much. Never saw them live. It was, of course, Billy Milano's project. Billy Milano did S.O.D. with Scott Ian, Charlie Benante, and Dan Lilker from Anthrax as kind of a side project at that time. And then, to me, as I said, this is really like a follow-up to Speak English or Die. It's very, very, I would say even identical to S.O.D., to Speak English or Die. I think lyrically, style, I think everything except the actual sound. The guitars sounded very different. I think the drums sounded different. Everything was different. But the style was exactly like S.O.D. Whatever you want to call it. For me, it's just thrash metal. Some people like to call it crossover thrash punk, which is like a mix of punk and metal. I don't know. To me, it's just thrash metal. And I'm going to talk about the album now. Now, this version that I have here, I had this record in 1987. And 1987 was I've talked about this before, the year of, or the summer of yelling. Because Anthrax, Among the Living, which is maybe my favorite album ever. I talked about this when I talked about Among the Living, when I did Anthrax's discography, that I loved, and all my friends, we loved the shouting, yelling, hollering backup vocals that Scott Ian did, which were a little bit on also on Speak English or Die, but also huge on this album. Scott Ian produced this album, and you can hear, I think, literally and figuratively, Scott Ian's fingerprints and voice is all over this album. So this version that I have here is a 30th anniversary edition that came out in 2017. I had the record in 87 and then the CD later. I don't know what happened to it. So I got this one in recent times. And I'm not sure what it is. I guess it's just a reissue. It's not a remaster. It's not a remix or any other words that start with re. I think it's just a reissue with slightly different artwork. There's the original artwork on the back, and there's the new updated reissue artwork. Now this does come with a letter from Billy Milano, kind of a stupid letter, I would say, about him blaming. This is the letter here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's basically, apparently it's from 1987, and it's him blaming the media for not liking this album, for being offended by it, claiming that there was nothing racist about it, that he was just portraying a character. At the time, I should say this album is very, very, a lot of bad words. You could never do an album like this now, or it would not be, you could, but it wouldn't be received very well. A lot of racism on this album, a lot of maybe sexist stuff, shaming. It's a very unpleasant album. But at the time, in 1987, I loved it. My friends loved it. This was a huge album. All my friends who liked thrash metal and who liked I would say more traditional metal, we all loved this album. And back then it was different. And I admit, when I was 17 when this came out, there was some stuff on here that I thought was pretty funny. That I listen to it now and I think it brings me back to that time. But I think that's probably not the best thing now, and I'll talk about that as I get to them. So Billy Milano wrote this letter blaming the media. The first line of the letter is, it says, an open letter to the press. What kind of press was covering M.O.D. at the time? I don't know. From Billy Milano and M.O.D. And Billy says, congratulations, you blew it. I don't know how, but you really blew it. You have no idea as to what my project, U.S.A. for M.O.D. is all about. Bullshit. I think everybody knew what it was about. Maybe it's his opinion has changed over the years, but I think this is a pretty damning album. So getting into this, Aren't You Hungry is the first song, and I listened to this the other day. I always listen to these albums before I talk about them, just to have get some reminders or have some inspiration or something. And it really, Aren't You Hungry really reminded me of Nuclear Assault. I haven't talked too much about Nuclear Assault in all these videos that I've done, but I loved Survived by Nuclear Assault and some other stuff, Handled with Care. And this Aren't You Hungry really reminds me of Nuclear Assault. And I think on the second not M.O.D, but S.O.D album, they did Are You Still Hungry? Was it that? And there was some association with, I think, Imitation of Life, which was the last song, and Among the Living by Anthrax. But very Nuclear Assault. It sounds like Nuclear Assault, Aren't You Hungry? Sitting in my kitchen, stuffed from having ate. What should I do now with what's left on my plate? Maybe I should say, but no, I got the cash. Think I'll take the easy way and throw it in the trash. This was a time when people in Africa were starving, and well, Ethiopia specifically. And I guess this was a little bit of a take on that, about feed the world and things like that, about giving food and money to starving people. This was M.O.D. I guess it was basically them saying, why aren't we taking care of Americans instead of taking care of Africans? And there's a line in the song that I'm not going to say, but it's you're not going to delete it from the album, but it's no good now. Next one, Get a Real Job. Now another thing about this album that is very similar. A lot of the songs on this album to me are counterparts from Speak English or Die. To me, Get a Real Job is similar to lyrically similar to Speak English or Die. They both mention hot dogs. I think in Speak English or Die, selling hot dogs on the corner, pushing papers in the street, pushing, pulling, digging, sweating. Where you come from, you must be beat. And in this song, they Get a Real Job. They also say something about hot dogs. Let me see if I can find the lyrics. And good packaging on this. I've talked about packaging a little bit, but I love lyrics, which the original album did have. It's got their M.O.D's discography there. So good packaging. What did they say about hot dogs on this? Still you drive a hack or push a hot dog cart. Now it's too late for you to get a real job. Standing on a corner, what is it? Standing on a corner, frozen to the bone. You had to make a living, but you'd rather be at home. Your eyes start getting heavy. Still you must purge on. Wake up and face the world and get a real job. Something like that. I love that song. That album is great. Obviously, I love this album. Next is I Executioner. That was another one that reminds me of Nuclear Assault. Specifically, it's very, very fast. I guess almost blast beat. Which reminds me of the middle part of I don't know, one song off Survive, the Nuclear Assault album, I can't remember. But very, very fast. I Executioner, There's Just Me. What are the lyrics to that one? I Executioner, There's Just Me. You can't buy justice and it sure ain't free. I Executioner, like Sergeant D. I'm Corporal Punishment. I weed out the wheat. I think this was Billy Milano's character. There we had Sergeant D, and then this was Corporal Punishment, I guess was this character. Next was, should I go to this? Are they in the same order? Don't Feed the Bears. Very funny song. Just like S.O.D, the lyrics, S.O.D lyrics were very funny, but not like Steel Panther, not like comedy. They were just funny, but the music was fucking awesome. The music was heavy and dead serious, but sometimes funny lyrics. Don't Feed the Bears. You had to prove that you're not scared. I think it was based on a real story of a woman in, I want to say Germany or somewhere, that went into a zoo at the time and climbed into the polar bear enclosure and got obviously killed. And they wrote a song about that. It was you had to prove that you're not scared. Into the cage, take the dare. Screaming death from the beast's lair. You couldn't read the sign, don't go in there. You best beware, don't feed the bears. Stupid fool, you should have known. That's someplace you shouldn't go. Polar giant on you, blood starts to flow. They belong not in a cage, but in the fucking snow. Don't go in there, you best beware. And please don't feed the fucking bears! Good advice, always. Don't feed the bears. Ballad of Dio, in the dark of the day or the black of the sun, he's coming for you. Look out! That was another counterpart to Ballad of Jimi Hendrix. And also, what else did S.O.D do? Ballad of Jimi Hendrix, You're Dead. Ballad of Scorpions, You're Dead. Ballad of, I can't remember. But Ballad of Dio. Thrash or be thrashed. I've seen enough, I just can't take it. Why don't you mosh or have an epileptic fit? You stand there like you're at a parade. Call this your scene, but you're the one who's betrayed. You got your feet glued to the floor. Just stand there and get thrashed some more. That had those great vocals that I was talking about, the yelling, hollering vocals. Just stand there and get thrashed some more. Call this your scene. I've lost my... Very easy to get distracted. You're the fuck up, addicted to the extreme. It's people like you who make me want to scream. Thrash or be thrashed. Let Me Out, isn't it? And all these songs are really short. I think of all these songs I've talked about so far, I think 3 or 4 of them are like less than 2 minutes. Let Me Out, Aren't You Sick of the Way That You're Living? Let Me Out. Good song too, Bubble Butt. Bubble Butt, Bubble Butt. That's another one that you maybe shouldn't sing. It's about fat girls. A girl with a bubble butt and a fat ass. YB, Your Beat. Start Up the Car, You Ain't Going Very Far. Start Up the Car. I like that one too. Bushwhackatees. I have no idea what that means, but that song is like 10 seconds long, and it's, is that your hair or a Tina Turner wig? You should be ashamed of yourself. So now you shaved your head, and that's a fashion too. Nice ears, you look like an elf. Bushwhackatees, 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 bushwhackatees. Man of Your Dreams, that was another counterpart, or a sequel to Man of Your Dreams, which was on Speak English or Die, another song about Freddy Krueger. These guys were, Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street series was huge at the time, so Man of Your Dreams obviously was a Freddy Krueger song. You thought he was dead, it was all in your head, you better get ready for Freddy. That noise obviously is a follow-up to What's That Noise, which was on Speak English or Die, which was just a bunch of headphone noise, and if you know what it is, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what it is, go and listen, because I don't feel like explaining it. And I think that was supposed to be Alex Perialis, the producer, engineer. To me, this one sounds like Scotty, and he says, we're setting up the headphone mix, Bill. Sounds like Scotty to me. Captain Crunch, that was another one that had those great yelling, hollering lyrics. Captain Crunch, Captain Crunch. My friends and I ran around screaming this stuff, Captain Crunch. I was sitting up at night. I was feeling up at night. I was sitting up at night. I was feeling so uptight. There was something. I was just fucking around. There was something dragging me down. Thinking of a bite to eat. Thought that would be really neat. Cheerios are stale. That's beat. Captain Crunch, Captain Crunch. Yelling, Captain Crunch, Captain Crunch. Jim Gordon was next. Jim Gordon, the man who was insane. Jim Gordon had Glaxo in his brain. Jim Gordon was insane. He took his mother's life. He used the hammer first so she wouldn't feel the knife. He's gone insane. He's lost his mind. It was about a guy who killed his mother. Presumably a true story. Imported Society. That's another one that lyrically I think is also similar to Speak English or Die, the song. It's about imported society. It's about imports. Import. About foreigners, about people coming into the country. Not my country, but I'm Canadian. In the United States. What were the lyrics of that one? That's another one that's it's really bad. Looking back on these, they come into this country, they can't get real. No, what is this? I was singing Speak English or Die. They came from the other, Speak English or Die, they come into this country, they can't get real jobs. Boats and boats and boats, if you go home, you fucking slobs. This is, they came from the other side in bunches at a time, crowding up the neighborhood to raise the rates of crime. Some of them got money, most of them got shit. All they do is come here to take from our pockets. Import society. Don't you fucking see that you bother me? Genocide, you can't hide. So go home now, don't come back. Take your goat, get on the boat. Really, really bad. Hindus and Ethiopians, they're all the fucking same. Hindus and Ethiopians, they're also fucking lame. Hindus and Ethiopians, they're also fucking lame. Indians, they're all... I'm totally fucking this up. Hindus and Ethiopians, they're all the same. Indians, they're also fucking lame. Really, really bad. Spandex Enormity. This is the epic song in this album. This is about 5 minutes. 5:28, even longer than I thought. Spandex Enormity. It's about a fat girl wearing spandex. Really, really shameful lyrics here. Waiting here in line, suddenly from behind. She's still a block away. Why'd it have to be today? What do I see? She recognizes me. She hugs and squeezes me. The spandex enormity. She's so sweet when she's yanking on my meat from Wang Dang Sweet Poontang by Ted Nugent. She's so sweet when she's yanking on my meat. Then she yells, it's trick or treat. It's too late. She asks for a date. Before I'd fuck you, I'd rather masturbate. Spandex. A beast from hell sent to plague me with misery. What a fucking beast. Her ass alone would be a feast, and her love drippings contained a stench of rotten yeast. The show must go on. It's the end of me. Taking up the whole front row. It's the spandex enormity. As we're walking off stage, she's waiting. As we're walking off stage, it's about a groupie, I guess. As we're walking off stage, you're waiting to come back. She's got a backstage pass. Oh no! I hide my head. The sight of you I dread. Her chubby little fingers grab my ass. Don't talk to me. Talk to Nick. Talk to Nick. Why does it always have to be me? You fucking fat bitch. I've had enough of you. Take your flubber buns and leave. And then there's a crying sound. I feel horrible even just repeating these lyrics. I love the song, and at the time I thought it was very funny. When I was 17 years old, I'm 51 now, and it's not as funny now, which is too bad because it's still a good song, but they should leave it on the album. There's no point taking it off. And funny that line, don't talk to me, talk to Nick, talk to Nick. I remember I can't remember where it was, maybe in Toronto sometime or somewhere. I was with my friend, and we were somewhere, and there was a diner, like a restaurant called Al's, and another like right beside her across the street called Nick's, and I was with my friend, and he said, don't eat at Al's, eat at Nick's, eat at Nick's. And it's one of those stupid things that you remember. So that's Spandex Enormity. She left here in tears. I mentioned there was crying. She left here in tears, followed by her rear. I could not help, she's fat. Very bad. Short but sweet. Very short but sweet. A couple of seconds long, that song. Parents. When I was your age, you son of a bitch, I worked for a living. What did he say? I climbed up, I carried eggs up 10 flights of stairs for a nickel. Something like that. Generations are always complaining about generations past are always talking about generations of today. I'm sure people today would also complain about generations from 1987, if that makes sense. Confusion, Your Ex. This was a bonus track. This was not on the original album or CD that I bought way back in 1987, but it was maybe it was on the cassette. They used to do bonus tracks for cassettes back then. Did I miss something? Yes. Next is AIDS. That's a horrible song. I mean, great. I loved it at the time. This was when AIDS was still pretty new, and it was considered a gay disease. Terrible. And I'll talk about the lyrics, but they're really, really bad and really so outdated now. And Billy Milano, I think, has or had a lot of nerve to say that, he was a good guy. I don't know. This was 34 years ago. You're accused of the following charges. You're a woman trapped inside of a man. Your sexuality, no one can deny you. Your sexuality, no one denies you, but your preference we can't understand. You are the loneliest of all people. It's time for you to realize. And then the music stops, and he says it like with like one of these preacher kind of guys. AIDS, like the plague, is from God, but he sees something wrong in his eyes. And in this song, AIDS stands for, and really, forgive me for saying this, I feel like a heel for saying it, but it's anally inflicted death sentence. Horrible. That's what you get. That's what you get for having a penis up your ass. That's what you get when you swallow another man's load. Millions of hamsters running rampant through your bowels. Take the Hershey Highway, fudge packing man, a manly man. anally inflicted death sentence. Horrible, horrible lyrics. Very, very, very outdated. And that's good. That's just no good. Ruptured nuptials. I bust my back, I bust my back, I bust my neck, I break my back to come home to a slut. You broke your vows, you dirty bitch, I'll kick you in the cunt. Ruptured nuptials. Ode to Harry, which is about a guy, I want to say, was it a celebrity? Somebody who died started up and headed down the LIE, the Long Island Expressway. You're dead now, Harry. You can't come back. You'd still be alive if you drove a Cadillac. He drove too cheap to own a real car. He had a Volkswagen Rabbit, and then put an end to Harry's cheap habits. The trucker couldn't stop, so the driver took aim. And when he hit Harry, Harry burst into flames. You're dead now, Harry. You can't come back. You'd still be alive if you drove a Cadillac. That was Scott Ian playing acoustic guitar on that song. And as I said, Scott Ian, he produced it. He plays guitar. He sings backup. He's all over it. And then the last song was The Love Boat. No, The Hate Tank. Very heavy song. When you see it coming, the shit runs down your leg. A rumble of disaster. It's much too late to beg. You didn't heed its warning. Now it's parked on top of your house. Your baby's crushed to pulp. You're cornered. You cry out. The Hate Tank. That's a great song. I was talking about my favorite songs on these albums. It's hard to pick a favorite on this one. I really like the whole album. Horrible lyrics notwithstanding. And we used to scream, the Hate Tank, me and my friends. I really like Thrasher Be Thrashed, Hate Tank, Man of Your Dreams, Jim Gordon. Yeah, every song, as you might have guessed, I do love this album. But there it is. So that's U.S.A. for M.O.D. and very, very outdated. And I never got too much into U.S.A. for M.O.D. Their next album, which was an EP called Surfin' M.O.D., was one of, if I could do another series called I Hate This Album, or This Album Was Disappointing to Me, the first one that I would do, I think, would be Surfin' M.O.D. That album was very disappointing to me. It was an EP, kind of a really strange, you would never even know that it was M.O.D. And then Gross Misconduct was okay, and then Rhythm of Fear was the last one I bought, and then I lost track of M.O.D. I'm not really sure what happened to them. I should maybe go back and listen to them, because I really did love them at this time. And funny that I mentioned love, because I do love this album.